Hello everyone, my name is Ed. I'm the incoming club president for the MIT Club of Northern California. And we're very happy and excited that you have come here for tonight's talk. Just for those who are here for the first time, MIT Club is a very active club in Northern California. We serve over 14,000 alumni in areas of social, sports, professional, career development, and etc. So if the club is new to you, please do look us up at mitcnc.org. That's our club website. We host over about 100 events a year, and there's definitely something for everybody. I'd like to do a brief introduction for Dr. Krishnamurthy Subramanian. He is the president of STIMS Institute, Inc., a knowledge integration company. It's focused on developing physical science-based technology, innovation, and management solution. Sabu obtained his BS degree from Osmania University in India, his MS, ME, and Doctor of Science degrees from MIT. He has worked for over 40 years in various positions, leading research, new business development, manufacturing processes, technology management, innovation, and mentoring. Sabu started his career at the Ford Company and International Harvester Company prior to joining the Norton Company, which is now part of the St. Gobain Company. He founded his new company, STIMS Institute, in 2011. Sabu had a personal and hands-on knowledge in R&D, new product development, business development, as well as human resources for the 21st century economy. He has published extensively in the technical as well as management-related topics. He holds 15 patents, and many of them are in commercial use today. He has mentored over 1,000 engineers across the globe on system approach and its application in industry and grinding processes, as well as other professional activity. Sabu has published 3 books: The Systems Approach, A Strategy to Survive and Succeed in the Global Economy, Thriving in the 21st Century Economy, Transformational Skills for Technical Professionals, and lastly, The Spirituality in Practice, a collection of essays. Sabu is a fellow in the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. He is also a fellow in the Society of Manufacturing Engineers. He received the 2020 Merchant Medal for Manufacturing, jointly presented by the ASME and SME. Sabu lives with his family in San Jose, and he's an active member of the MIT CNC. So without further ado, here's the man of the hour.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ed, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking your time off on this beautiful California summer day. Maybe it's better to be indoor rather than outdoor today because of the heat. I thought I'll make a kind of a journey through my career for the past 40 years in this short talk. I'll speak for about 40 to 45 minutes, 50 maximum, so it'll give us enough time for question and answer and discussions. May have related experience, and they may even recall some of their own life stories, which I hope you'll have listen during the discussion, because what I'm going to tell you is not unique. It has been the journey that has been traveled by many, many professionals in the past 3 or 4 or 5 decades. Every so often, I take the time to synthesize my experience, and as Ed mentioned, I published them in 3 books. The first book was published in year 2000. The second book was published in 2013, and then the last one in 2023, about 10, 15 years apart. And if you're interested, you can take a look at it later on. and also you can take a picture of it if you want to look it up in Amazon or something like that. But the talk is not about my book, the talk is about the journey. With that brief introduction, I'll try to give you a brief overview of what is AI and what is AI, what is not AI. By the way, I'm not an expert in AI, so to that extent my view will be more of that any common man looking at AI and the field today. But I'll give you a few references from a couple of experts who have made comments on that, which I will include in my summary. Then we'll also look at a journey of what has been the life journey of the professionals since 1977, when I became a graduated and started working in the professional field. And many of you will know 1980 was about the year when computer got actively introduced into the workplace and progression thereafter. That leads us to something which I'll summarize as system thinking and transformational skills. And we'll go a little bit more into that, and I hope by the time you walk away, your take with will be 7 transformational skills, and all of them very much within your own toolkit, except we'll put them in certain order so that you'll be able to harness whatever you already learned through your studies at MIT and through further studies through your career to put to better use and not be overwhelmed by this onslaught of fear that's being created under the guise of artificial intelligence. So the goal for system thinking and transformation skills will be to dive deep and also span wide at the same time. And it is possible. It's often referred to as T-shaped thinking, and we'll come to it as part of our presentation. Second will be defining and resolving problems. If you're ever in the habit of doing something that somebody asked you to do it, when you leave this meeting today, leave that aside. Don't do anything that somebody asks you to do. Instead, figure out what is needed to be done, why they are asking you for that, and figure out what is it that they have not even thought about in asking you what you needed to be done, and make sure that gets done. When you do that, they give the big name called entrepreneurial. Of course, if you make it and sell it to a company, you're an entrepreneur with lots of equity income. But if you do the same thing within a professional career, you're still an entrepreneur with a successful career and successful professional accomplishments, sometimes far larger than what an entrepreneur can accomplish despite their high success in the equity world. And that is the beauty and joy of being a professional. That's the beauty and joy of being a graduate from MIT. And create and implement new solutions becomes a natural outcome of that approach. And finally, we need to have some metrics for system thinking and transformational skills. And we'll talk about them as we wrap up this presentation. I think I went to the last slide. I didn't mean to do that. So recently I heard a talk by Professor Lee Hackman. He's an expert in AI. He's from North Carolina State University. He gave a talk on thinking about AI, and I have a couple of slides from his talk. The link for his talk is in the presentation. You can look it up in the YouTube. But basically his point is that he made ChatGPT to prepare an introduction of himself to the audience to whom he was giving the talk. And what he found was a lot of white stuff which is generic. He also found some which are green, which are true. There are also some red, which are not true at all. In fact, made him look better than what he was, but they were not true. Then he tried to teach ChatGPT through few trials, but it didn't improve. It did improve, but these 3 qualities of generic, true, and not true persisted. So his grading of ChatGPT is that it can be understood. It understood and gives prompts. It wrote reasonable intro, rewrote it with requested specific details, and it was very fast and very cheap within 1 minute, free. But the problem was it was hagiographic, that is more flattering in nature than otherwise. And also there are a lot of false facts. And finally, it was so plausible to be believable. And that's the challenge we face with AI as it exists today. I'm sure it will get better, but that doesn't mean we cannot get better at deploying AI rather than be only dependent on AI. Here is another page sent to me by a friend of mine. By the way, I will talk about ecosystem development later on. By ecosystem development, I don't mean to suggest have a long Rolodex of cards with people's names and email addresses, things like that. But it has to be based on certain core competence through which they can assist you, support you, you help them, they help you, and that kind of ecosystem is very valuable. It is through such a help I got a one page from a book by Raghuram Rajan. He is a professor in finance from Chicago. He quit the job and went to India to become the head of the Reserve Bank in India, to completely switch his field. He had his own trials and tribulations, and he wrote about that. And his conclusions, a couple of them are, first of all, it is also very good. In fact, he expresses the view that it could be so good that it would be able to replace lawyers, some workers in the field of service, customer service, or foreign language translators, and probably even people like professors like him. But on the other hand, he also looked at and found out that one case study where ChatGPT was used by a lawyer to present a case to the judge, but the judge had never heard of those case proceedings before. ChatGPT had made it up. So his point also, similar to Dr. Hackman, that ChatGPT can be good, but it can also be dangerous. Now, my friend Shankar and we did an experiment. Actually, it was his experiment. He's from NVIDIA. He's an expert in AI. He said, I'll check ChatGPT bot, and me, because I had just published my third book on spirituality, he'll say, I'll give 4 questions to them, those 2 tools. I'll also give you the same questions, and let's see what comes out of it. And it's a blind test. I did not know what ChatGPT or bot had given him, and I gave him the answers to the same questions. What it turned out was, his first question was, what is spirituality? And as it turned out, the definition of spirituality, he said, your answer is spot on, a model-based description, because that's what we get through our training at MIT. You learn to develop models, quantitative methods by which to analyze any problem in front of you. And none of the AI responses match the depth of the human expertise that we could get from those 3 answers. He also asked, what's the difference between spirituality and religion? A very common question. But those questions are not easy to answer unless you have tons of information or in-depth knowledge in the subject matter. And he said, I find ChatGPT to be more mature, but not at the human level. If I had not seen your answer, I would be extremely impressed with AI and its responses. Then he said, what's the difference between religion and spirituality? Another common question. And he said, about to completely fail. ChatGPT gave a very insightful answer that is simple and easy to understand, but it did not match the concise answer that you gave. I'm not putting it up to flatter myself or anything like that, but I'm putting myself with this to make a fundamental point, which I'm going to make at the end of this slide. And that is, and this asks what is Vedic, summarized Vedic philosophy. And he said, to be honest, if I had not seen your response, I would think ChatGPT did a wonderful job. So the problem of AI in general is that human expertise can be intuitive. It can be very synthetic. It pulls in information based on different contexts and circumstances far better than a tool can do at this time. And also, usefulness of human capability can be ignored or sidelined under the glamour of AI or something novel. By the way, this has been the challenge for professionals for the last 4 decades under the glamour of quote-unquote technology. By the way, I will give you an answer for what is technology. You think about it for a few minutes, because I'll give my answer later on. It's not always computer science or artificial intelligence or programming or data science or something like that. But you have to struggle in the workplace to make your solution be visible to the decision makers in a way that is taken advantage of against something that appears glamorous as presented by some consulting companies or organizations of that kind. And you will see that in my next slide. I'll come to it a little bit later on. So grading, first question is thinking beyond AI. It is obviously impressive. It improves through revisions. There is a lot of imagination and it's unstable. But it's also extremely fast, and compilation and aggregation is more common than synthesis. Follows the instructions to meet standards and expectations set by someone else. On the other hand, if you look at grading ourselves as professionals, what you find is that are you precise in your language? Do you develop a common language? Most of the time, the success of a professional breaks down simply because what we think and what you are doing and what is expected, they don't match. They don't match because the common language has not been established. Later on, I will use a term called technical output and system output. These two have to be clarified and standardized and agreed upon and constantly reviewed to make sure that we are in the same wavelength. Then the success of a professional is always far more effective than simply doing what you're asked to do by responding to your task. Then you have the metrics to calibrate your work and output. And this is the important thing. In a business, the metrics are very often there. Every year there's a budget, there's the financial metrics. They have to meet it or they have to beat it. So the common language is there throughout the company. But what is the metrics of every professional has to be established by ourselves if we are going to be successful in the era of AI. Then, is your work based on rules of thumb? And so that's better than being hallucination. But is it based on science, engineering, and management? This is what we learn at school, but then it's left behind. I'll tell you a small story about that. This was told about 10 years ago by a friend of mine who had a PhD in heat transfer from Harvard, not MIT. So I'm making it up. But the reality is the student, the new graduate, was asked to solve a problem. The boss expected him to do some back of the envelope calculation and come back and say, this is what possible, it's not possible. But the new employee said, without a computer model, I can't do anything about it. So you see, we leave the fundamentals of science, engineering, and management behind in the notes that we took in the classroom, but never bring it to the workplace. And I will discuss a little bit more about it later on. And do you deliver consistent, reliable outcome? Many a time a project gets cancelled because the projects are not understood as reliable by the people who make the decisions. Then there are also 3 levels of solution that we deliver. One is called awareness, which I'm pretty sure AI can do a good job because it's aggregation of information. Second is analysis, where the disciplines of science, engineering, and management are rigorously brought into. And finally, synthesis, where you're creating a solution and implementing them. Then, do you set your own standards or let others measure your standards or set your standards for you? Those are the questions we have to address as we go forward. And this has been the question for everyone who has been successful in professional career for the past several decades. Next thing is, be aware of the unfounded optimism. Professor Hackman talks about it as AI winters. There are a couple of examples I have put here. One of them was in 1970, somebody said, it's actually Marvin Minsky from MIT AI Labs said, in about 3 to 5 years, we'll have a machine with the general intelligence of an average human being. I'll let it sink in for you for a few seconds. That was said in 1970. So there are promises made about artificial intelligence which create the euphoria, but then there is a AI winter comes in that lowers it and keeps moving. And according to Professor Hackman, there's AI winter expected not too far from now. Next thing is, you have to know what is AI. AI, again, from what I've learned and from what I heard from this talk by Professor Hackman, it's model based. But who decides the model and what kind of model comes from the professionals if we are going to use AI in technical fields? For example, Professor Hackman gave a model of how do you estimate the price of a house in a given area. You can have price of the house equal A times median value of the price in that area plus B times area of the house plus C, a constant fudge factor we always use. Then you feed a lot of data to arrive at A, B, and C. The more you have the data, more you train AI, that A, B, C gets more rigorous and estimation the house price goes up. But who said the price of the house is dependent only on the median house and also the area? What happens to go into the features in the house? What happens to the cost of the materials? What happens to structural stability? None of them go into that model. Not that they should not, but that particular model used that kind of a. So you have an opportunity as a professional to get into AI projects, to look at what is the model behind it and how can we refine using the knowledge of science, engineering, and management. Second is, how do you teach the parameters for the models? How do you get the data, or where do you get the data? Garbage in, garbage out. How do you evaluate the model for its quality and how well it works? These are all the opportunity areas for professionals that we need not run away from or shrink away from. So my point here is, what is the science behind data science? Today it's not Newtonian physics. Here is the two things I talked about from the consulting companies. One of them is for Goldman Sachs, which says 300 million jobs will be lost or degraded by AI. As soon as you looked at it, it creates a paranoia. What do you worry about? What 300 million jobs? It could be my job. But then if you look at another study from McKinsey, they say 88% of the work for AI belongs to non-technical work. 12% belongs to technical work. And 2% of the people are only involved in AI development. There's no reason the rest of the people cannot get into the AI development and provide solutions related to that if we look at what is AI and how to apply that. It also says freeing many to focus on higher level cognitive work. Now the question is, I already talked about AI winters and all these projections versus reality. But the point I like to make is, what is a higher level of cognitive work? And what are the jobs that are human-centric? And those jobs are always likely to be jobs which have intense science, engineering, and not management content in them, which are required to move from unawareness to analysis to synthesis. Then the question is, how do you go about it? Here is where I like to share a few minutes of my own personal experience, a few stories for you. Because I graduated in 1977. I came to Ford Motor Company, fresh graduate, very excited. I'm going to make a big difference. And I didn't want to go to academia. I wanted to work in the industry. The boss told me, go design this machine with these requirements. I said, well, I did not know any of these things I'm talking today. So I was as naive as anyone will be coming out of college. They said, you design a machine with certain force capabilities for the cutting edge so that it is cutting edge force are lower. Why? Because at higher cutting forces, the tools break. Because of that, you have to change them very frequently. If you design a machine to make it smaller, the tools will last long. Nobody has changed tools for a long time. Productivity will go up. You'll be the glory boy. I said, great. Just help me with one thing. Show me a tool that when you're using, I want to know what is going on. They always show me a broken tool. In other words, tool is always broken when it cannot be used. But I asked them, show me a tool when it's used, when it's not broken. Believe it or not a single person could give me that. And that is what happens. Because most of the time, we fall into a common notion, what has been told and repeated over and over again. And computers and artificial intelligence are capable of promoting that far better than anything else. So I, in my naivety, went to Cleveland engine plant, sent a friend, the plant manager, and said, sir, I want you to stop this big engine plant, this engine manufacturing line. because I want to look at the tool while it's operating and not when it's broken. You know what he told me? I don't want to use the word he used, but he said, "Blank, get out of here." He also told me, just because you are wearing a suit and a tie and came from the headquarters and got a PhD from MIT, you think you can come and tell me what I should do? So I couldn't leave. I sat in front of his office for a week. He was getting pressure from my boss and others. He got mad at me. He said, "Okay, go talk to the people in the shop floor." He gave me a name. Maybe he will help you. I am not going to help you anymore. You are in my black book. So I went to the shop floor. A man said, "I'm a foreman. I'm a union foreman. I can't help you. You're here to improve productivity." So I spent another week talking to him, buying coffee and tea and whatever else. I know more about his family problem than even his wife knows. And at the end of it, he said, "You are my friend. I know you're not going to screw me. So take me." I'll ask that guy. He's a worker. He'll stop the machine. Believe it or not, we stopped the machine. We looked at the cutting tool. I don't want to go into technical detail, but every one of them had a failure mode completely different from what people are predicting. People are predicting mechanical rupture as a failure mode, but it was thermal fatigue. As soon as I saw that, which is basic engineering material science, I went back to my lab, told my boss. He said, "Wait a minute, I've got another lab where I've got this ceramic material which I'm not using for a long time because they don't have enough mechanical strength, but it's fantastic for thermal fatigue." We chopped it up, shaped it in a cutting tool, put it in the machine, and test the machine. 20 times tool life. And then we went into that's where science stopped. Then I take out my white coat, put on my blue coat for the lab factory work, put it on 50 different machines in a matter of 3 months. Every one of them we improved productivity. Instead of changing the tool after an hour, they'll change the tool after every shift, and that gave them enormous savings. And that savings was sufficient to make it a very attractive project, and everybody was happy. And do you know what the management did? They changed the name of the project from high productivity machine tool development to high productivity process development. And that's fine. So you have to live with those things. That's their job. But you got the job done, and I moved on. Then I moved into another company. I have so many stories to tell you like that. But one other, that is science part of it. I will tell you the engineering part. In between, there are so many others. I wish maybe the question and answer, I'll tell you more stories. Lost my job went international harvester. The company went bankrupt within 6 months after I joined. So they kept us for another 6 months. So I went Northern Abrasives, a very brick and mortar company, nothing to do with high technology like that. Here I am wanting to be in the high technology space and all that, joining an abrasives company, because that's what I could get at that time. So I did some research, I did some engineering, science, I did a lot of graphs and charts. I went to chairman of a machine tool company in Clemson, South Carolina. He listened to it very patiently, and he's a very smart man, brilliant man. We were designing multi-axis CNC machines for certain operations. He tapped on my shoulder and said, "Come, let's have coffee." He didn't want to tell me in front of all the group of people. He took me to the side, I took to the coffee place, and he said, "Subbu, you're brilliant. All what you told me makes a lot of sense. But don't give me all those things. They're all making me crazy. Just put all of this thing in something that is 4 inch by 4 inch by 4 inch, that I can put it on my machine so I can get the job done, so I can move forward, and you go to your research in your lab." That's when I understood the meaning between science and engineering. Graphs and charts are very powerful as scientific tools, but when they convert it into some application that's useful for someone, you got engineering. And then I went to work and learned about how to do product development, wrote my own brochures and catalogs, and I knew marketing was the most important thing. So we prepared our own videos, marketing videos. I wrote the script for that because I knew enough about the technical stuff. I could work with the salespeople who told me how to modify that. The point here is science, engineering, and management are not distinct silos to be kept separate, but the interdisciplinary aspect of every professional, and is very needed for success in the global economy. So that's what I learned and published my first book in year 2000. Then that's what I'm saying here, science, is a quantitative or intuitive understanding of the phenomena of nature. And engineering is the application of science towards some desired end use. And hopefully the end use desired is good for the humanity rather than something bad. And management is nothing more than strategic thinking and operational thinking to get the job done. And technology, by the way, I told you to think about it. My definition of technology, which I'm sure many of you will agree, and probably it's also written by other experts, is an integration of science, engineering, and management. A technology without science is not technology. A technology without engineering is not technology. A technology without management is not technology. So just because somebody is like, so white coat is not a slack person, wearing a blue coat is not a factory person, a pinstripe suit is not a manager. They are all together in those three disciplines. Now, I learned something more very wise from a wise comment. Recently, a few weeks ago, I was in the Boeing Flight Museum. There was a gentleman by the name Dick Nelps. He's a World War II fighter pilot, and he's 101 years old. And he was giving a talk at that age, and his point was, times change, but knowledge and know-how remain permanent and forever, as long as we keep our memory sharp, our spirits high, and keep using them. That's a fundamental skill of every professional, which I learned in his words to me. Here's an example of what I mean by that. This is a plane, that every plane or any plane that flies, the center of gravity has to be balanced by the weight that adjusting it. The science behind it is the same no matter what kind of plane you make. The engineering that changes. By the way, I put some things here because some of you may not even have seen a slide rule. How many of you have seen a slide rule? My goodness, I'm here with a few of my age group. Because that was it before, way before log tables, way before calculators, handheld. When they came handheld calculators, then maybe something else today, like mobile devices. But so engineering will change with time. You have to keep up with it. But the science behind it will be the same and unchanging. The next point here is, in terms of jobs and careers, job in the past, you could get into a job at any level, learn with the boss, learn with the peers around you, learn a little bit more about upstream and downstream, so that you become a shop floor worker, could become a foreman could become a supervisor could be a mid-manager could be a general manager, and sometimes, some cases, even CEO of the company. But that mobility has been completely changed into 4 impermeable layers, and we have to accept that as a reality. There will be blue-collar workers whose jobs will constantly be challenged through robots and drones. Then there will be white-collar workers who will go more into, not white-collar workers, information workers will go more into program. I should not even call them blue-collar workers. Actually, physical labor, information work, professional work, and making money out of money, which you call investment work. And if you look at it, 1% of the population worldwide is in the top category, 9% is the middle professional category, 90% are in the bottom 2 category. So when they say AI will affect the 90%, and AI will not affect the 9% as much as we fear, provided we know what professional work is really all about. It is knowledge work. Now, what is knowledge work? Then you can ask me. This is also some evolving model. These are part of my second book, published in 2013. We call the binary economy. Essentially, in any field of activity, as soon as you think of something, the knowledge content in it is very high. Comes from R&D, comes from a scientist, some brilliant guy or woman who thought of it. And as you start making larger and larger quantities, the technical content of that goes down. You got replicating with more number of people with less number of knowledge. So that's the nature of the game it was a while ago. Then, that screen may not work, but then what has happened in the past is, if you take the total quantity of work we do through knowledge work A, information work as B, physical work as C, A plus B plus C is the total input. A is the output. Output divided by input is efficiency. So we can have it called professional efficiency score. So you can do your own PE score as you go along in your own jobs and careers. And what I find is it can be very high on one side, one segment, when you're integrating new solutions with numerator being very high, or it can be very high on the other extreme where the value added or the cost added through labor and information is dramatically brought down, or the denominator is brought down. But in between is what I call as the crisis of the middle. By the way, this crisis of the middle is true for any company, any project, any person, or any professional work. So it is immaterial what we do. So the challenge then is to nudge ourselves to the new solutions and how to integrate them. So how do we do that? This is where I come to what I call transformational skills. So we gain academic knowledge through colleges, and we gain domain-specific knowledge through wherever we work. Add to that a set of layers called transformational skills, through which you move from task to a goal-oriented person, creating new solutions as opposed to delivering tasks to learn what you're asked to do. That is part of the system thinking. Then you become more focused on impact. That is, you're worried about the end-to-end innovation. By end-to-end innovation, I mean idea, development, and deployment. This idea, development, and deployment need not be only at the biggest levels. Even every project we do, there is an ideation, there's a development, and transferring it to use to somebody else. Then beyond that, in order to sustain that, we need to have an ecosystem and emotional intelligence. I'll talk a little bit more about it later on. So this is the model that we use in STIMS Institute for generating strategies for professionals and companies. Now, where do the core capabilities come from? At the individual level, it is unique knowledge or expertise together with experience and people skills. This is a transformational core capability at the individual level that gets integrated to science, engineering, and management. At the project level, that gets integrated to physical technology, digital technology, finance, and market areas. Some people say, when should I quit or move to another company? If you use this table, you will know where you are, and wherever there is a gap, that gap you can fill, either fill within your own company or wherever the opportunity comes along, or within a new project within your company. So that's where you become mobile, you become agile, you become more strategic in your own career development. These opportunities existed long time ago where you joined one company and you were taken care of. But sadly, because of the four layering of the job organization, we are required to do it more on ourselves. And this is nothing new. You have to take care of your own investment through 401k. You have to take care of your own taxes on your own. You have to take care of so much healthcare on your own. So there's nothing new about having to take care of your own professional requirements by looking at the core capability and adjusting them. So it is an aggregation of core capabilities from individual level to project level to enterprise level. You can put it all together into a system framework. This is what we call the STIM system approach, where the science, engineering, and management comes together. The key point I would like you to take from this one slide will be, look at the output can be divided between what's called technical output and system output. For example, when you write a report and give it to your boss, that's a technical output. What is the impact that report had for all the time and money you spent, others spent on that, will be the system output. A product that you sell to a company is a technical output. The value generated as a result of it and the customer satisfaction is a system output. Like that, you can completely distinguish between what versus the why. There's a fantastic video by Mike Sinek called Ask Why. You can go to YouTube and look it up. It's an amazing video. He talks about asking why is how companies make a difference. Most of the companies who ask what keep creating more and more products and be at the bleeding edge of the innovation. Those who ask why will go at the leading edge of innovation. So, output of every professional at the end of the day falls into three categories. Same is true for any company. The product, process, and application are used. And most people think it's the product that generates the revenue. That's absolutely not true. Somebody's going to say, Subbu, get out of here, you're already hallucinating. No, it's a product that generates the value to the customer, that generates the repeat sales, that generates the profits and revenue. So it is leveraging this customer perceived value. That's a whole field in Bay Area called customer success management, used by people for selling service of software solutions. So the question then is, and what is happening today in the industry is that people with the knowledge of product, process and applications in terms of the science, engineering and management are few in number. In a large organization with those 4 layers of jobs, the people who know those things are very few. So our challenge is to fit into those to make sure we become relevant because we know what the product is as perceived by the customer. And applications technology behind the product is really where the king of the crown is. And the process looked at as a system integrating science, engineering and management, like I showed you in the previous slide. If you do that, then you can have a diagnostic tool for any process. And the more diagnostic tool you have, more digital driven it is, more likely to be successful you are. In fact, today, in the field where I come from, you can take me to any company that does grinding. I've got some diagnostic tools that we have worked with our people. With that, I can walk into any shop floor. I can guarantee 10% productivity improvement. Simply because we understand the science behind the process. My point is not to brag about what we can do, but to say the power of the science, the power of the in-process digital data, and they're leveraging that through AI is a completely open field, completely open for leveraging, accessible. Probably I'm not there in that space right now because my motivation is not there to go into that business. But maybe if someone of you are interested, we can talk about it. So essentially, whenever a signal changes from its set point, you should know why, how to restore it to where it belongs, how to improve that, how to maintain that, and create a new set point. Each one of them is an opportunity area for innovation in any process and in any problem solving. And diagnostic tools are the key means for that. Next one is, traditionally we used to be called specialist and generalist, but today the job will be only in terms of awareness, where you can aggregate information, analysis, where you bring science, engineering and management to leverage the information to achieve the technical and system outputs, and synthesis, where the system output is delivered, implemented, and we get a check for that. Many often technical people think that marketing what they did is marketing, that is sales job, don't do that. That's not true at all. If management is part of our own portfolio of technology, then selling what you did is as much an integral part of our job, as much as doing the job and getting implemented. Probably I'm speaking more to this side because more young people, because more in this side might already know what I'm talking about. So, is higher education worth the cost? Maybe a question that may be asked. The answer is depends on the school you go to and what you learn there, depends on the employer, and also your initiative as an individual. But the problem with it is, with these 3 being the areas, you are left with the bag, holding the bag. So it becomes more of an individual responsibility rather than expecting the organization or the school to do that. So to learn and refine the system thinking and transformation skills, the individual responsibility, because individual carries the risks and the burden. That's why I started writing the books. That's why I started teaching and mentoring. So and it also shows students who receive associate's degree were able to recoup their education costs quicker than those who got bachelor's degree or certificates, because most of them were burdened with student loans, which are high and burdensome. Also, students who receive no economic benefit from enrolling in college earned even less than a typical high school graduate. So these are realities we have to accept, and we have to work against that. Now, how do you then acquire these transformational skills? It used to be that in the past, you could go to a college, get in an industry, then as you do more and more, you identify a high potential person, and then you move up the organization. Now what has happened is, you have to start with a transformational skill, an aptitude for problem solving, an entrepreneurial outlook for delivering solutions. Once you do that, then in a given sector, then you acquire more academic know-how. It's not very uncommon for many people who work for many years, then go get a PhD and enhance their career, or go get an MBA and enhance their career. But today, in the 21st century, it's my opinion, it's no longer some sort of a linear acceleration in a certain direction or the other, but it's more like a checkered, where you constantly keep managing the portfolio. It's more like a portfolio management rather than simply aggregating for a period of time. So these are the transformational skills we already talked about, and as I mentioned this in the second book. The first is develop a common language. Second is 3D view of core capabilities. The third is system thinking and knowledge integration. The fourth is science and mobile diagnostics. Fifth is building ecosystem, and I mentioned to you what ecosystem really means. It's based on core capabilities. And that means everyone in every discipline. You could have friends in academia, you could have friends in industry, you could have friends in finance. As long as they're all able to resonate with a common ball of wax related to science, engineering, management in an area where you're trying to develop your jobs and careers. End-to-end innovation. Remember, end-to-end innovation, it sounds very simple. If I were to rate discovery in a scale of 1 to 5, development in a scale of 1 to 5, deployment in a scale of 1 to 5, and even if I'm 5 in discovery and development, but my deployment is 1, totally end-to-end innovation is only 25 in a scale of 125. So that is a challenge we face in innovation for technical professionals, or any professional in any field for that matter. And finally, we call emotional intelligence. What is this emotional intelligence? That's the third book I wrote in 2013 after 10 years of studies and research. But a very simply put, if I show this white wall, that's all our knowledge, all our capabilities, all our resources, everything accessible to us. Then I draw a dark circle. Where does the mind go to? Our attention goes to that dark circle, right? 99% of the area may be white, but our mind automatically gets drawn into the dark circle. It is by looking at the big picture, training the mind to do that, rather than focus on the narrow specificity with which our mind wants to focus, because we are driven by our mind rather than our managing the mind to look at the big picture is a very fundamental aspect of emotional intelligence. It's also a fundamental aspect of spirituality in practice. I don't want to get into it because people will think of it as religion and all those things, but it is not. I'm not in that big from the point of view. In fact, if we're all spiritual in a bigger field, bigger thinking, we'll be far out of the political quagmire and the division that we're facing today in the country. I'm speaking not as any political partisan, but as a human being. And it's the same thing that will be better off across the nations. What we see in the Middle East, what we see in India, what we see in China, so on. Who is capable of doing that? We professionals are capable of doing that, because we are the knowledge workers. And it's the same knowledge, spirituality we can bring into the job by saying, look at everyone around us as an opportunity area to help them. And by making them better, we also get better. Very often people think of shying away, taking a little bit of time to discussing with neighbor or a project team member because I've got so much to rush. You know, how many of you get WhatsApp messages where I send 4 points in WhatsApp? First point, half of it will be replied. Rest of it is gone because I'm in such a rush. Why? Because I'm not thinking of the big picture. And why? After there's plenty of time to do everything, including answering those 4 points. I don't mean to be pontificating or preaching or anything like that. I say that with a genuine sense of passion, because once we do that, our life transforms into doing so many things and so much fulfilling, which includes professional success. So, to summarize, do you foster a common language? Do you have metrics to calibrate your work? Is your work grounded in science, engineering, and management fundamentals? Do you deliver quantifiable value-added output? Are you clear about awareness, analysis, and synthesis, and drive yourself more towards synthesis? Do you set your own standards or let others set the standards for you? Beware of all AI winters, so don't be overwhelmed with the AI and the euphoria that's created around them. Be on the lookout for opportunity areas in AI, how to contribute to design the models behind AI, how do you select and teach the parameters in the model, where do you get the data, how do you evaluate how well the model works. Take time to reflect on emotional intelligence. I have a short video clip, about 10 minutes long. I was going to show it to you and then go to my conclusion. But to keep it in time, I'll go to the conclusions, then I'll show you the video as a way. That's a video by Warren Buffett in his speech. Have a dream, work to accomplish that. Be entrepreneurial. Success often requires several trials. Delight your customers. They're more than your boss or the employer. Have a good attitude towards fellow human beings. Life is a balancing act between economic, social well-being, and spiritual well-being. Focus your efforts across all three, because that's a balance tool that we need, and it's a balance tool on which we can also have a joyful MIT experience. Thank you very much.